Let him go! Hey! Lynch! I'll fucking kill you!
I say the following with no lick of irony or sarcasm. Kane and Lynch 2 might just be the most artistically cohesive game ever made, or at least that I've played. It has a miserable philosophy regarding its own context and characters that subtly condemns itself, all without exposition, delivered through its audio, visual and gameplay presentation with absolutely zero fat. The visual aesthetic is immediately apparent, as the handheld camera makes sure not a single frame of the game looks appealing, with video artifacting, lens flares and washed out colours perverting the player's view into Kane and Lynch's world. The pixelating effect that censors some of the violence and nudity somehow makes it sit even worse than if it were explicit, and makes it look like footage you'd expect a news anchor to preface with, "The following video may contain images some viewers will find disturbing." It's perhaps even more relevant now that the game looks like some type of snuff film, with ISIS beheading videos and cell phone recorded street violence found all over social media, if not even just the mainstream news. In the context of controlling this media through play, the game works as a criticism of its own violence. It's all ugly in Kane and Lynch, nothing comes of it, and it's just a means of an unsatisfying end. Subtleties in the control also lean the player towards creating their own mess and never making it the result of a cutscene. Guns are wild and mostly inaccurate. Kane and Lynch themselves are clearly inept, and the untidy combat encounters sell this as you spray and pray, rushing around hoping to not get shot, scrambling for your next gun as the last one runs empty. The gang members you fight in the early game are ununiformed and difficult to identify, as they could just as well be your typical young thug or old man and anything in between, making shootouts in busy streets, markets or sweatshops a complete shit show. As far as you're concerned, anyone can turn a gun on you, and as you rain full auto, it feels like innocents are meant to get tagged in the crossfire, dropping just like any other foe, with no funfare, forgotten about, and a meaningless byproduct of the death circus brought on by Kane and Lynch's fuck-up.
Kane, get back! What the fuck? Jesus fucking Christ! Move in!
IO refuses to glorify anything, not even their protagonists. Kane and Lynch are nothing short of the worst human beings you'll control in a video game, and they are incapable of doing anything right. The game is just the two perpetually failing until they're lucky enough to catch some sort of escape from the living hell of Shanghai. There is no attempt at sympathy or redemption. The game just presents these two awful human beings as they are, and lets you come to your own conclusions.
To go through with it.
Yeah, but this way.
I see a few problems with the deal that need to be looked at.
Sure. How's your daughter?
It's fine.
I mean, after what she went through.
I said she's fine, okay? Don't start fucking around.
Okay, I'm sorry.
What's remarkable about the game is how it capitalizes on its message with no exposition or a script that beats you over the head. The dialogue between Kane and Lynch is uninterested in serving the imaginary audience. They talk to each other like they would without the context of them being served up as ciphers for the player. You'll be just as lost as Kane when Lynch starts name-dropping big Chinese gangsters, and just as Lynch is focused on nothing but saving his girlfriend, the arms deal vaguely alluded to as Kane's motivation is nothing but background noise. Nothing's important or given that Hollywood sheen that a lot of crime plots tend to get. It's all secondary to the mood and a sense of realism. Where the script functions well is in the midst of combat, the two of them shouting flanking maneuvers, calling out locations, the path forward, and when's best for them to split up is all very naturalistic and works as gameplay direction without sacrificing the presentation. It also shows off the quality of voice acting and segues nicely into an underappreciated part of the game, being sound design.
Shed. Come on.
Mona Murr composed the game's dark industrial ambience, and it is of a Lynchian quality in how it aids in creating an oppressive diegetic soundscape. It amplifies the themes of an unappealing violence, urban loneliness and oppression, making Kane and Lynch 2 sound and feel more like a horror game, which is appropriate for the nightmare scenario the two find themselves in. Again, as mentioned, the voice acting drapes the characters with an unappealing attitude, and the psychopathic nature of Lynch is really sold as he mumbles to himself and shouts aloud during combat encounters, adding to the blistering soundscape of the game.
Bastards! Who you trying to kill? Careful of the propane tank! Over by the kitchen! She's not far. We can't stay on the streets. Through the kitchen. There's gotta be an alley.
The purposeful amateur aesthetic also applies to the sound design. Fake audio buffering, artifacting, blowouts, clipping and imbalances are unsettling flourishes to accompanying the juttering and unprofessional visual editing, completing the cohesive vision of a cobbled together misery. While this all sounds like a terrible experience, IO's trademark tendency for underlying humour is twisted into the mould, creating a sense also of absurdity. While at first the scene of the two crooks being sliced apart, naked and bloody, is on the surface purely gross, I found myself taken aback when Lynch slides in to break the neck of her captor, his bare balls pixelated and pot-belly floundering. It was so bizarre that I laughed, out loud, blown away by such an absurd image. But it wasn't a laugh of comedy, it was a response to not knowing really how to feel. It was a laugh of discomfort, as the scene is perhaps a tonal boiling point of the whole game. Perhaps equally as striking is the recognition that the torture the two men are facing is abhorrent, is disgusting and awful, yet I had no feeling of sympathy for the two, no sense that they didn't deserve it or that they should escape, just the hollow realization that there's still more game left, and being cut to shreds and strung out in the rain, arse naked, isn't gonna stop the game from carrying on. Kane and Lynch 2 is an exercise in abjection, deliberately unsatisfying, yielding no reward. And why should it? It treats its context with a responsibility that never yields. Everything is ugly, and in a game where you play as two inept, violent scumbags, why wouldn't it be?